Blessings and welcome to another episode of Black Mental Health Matters. Our mission here is to encourage open dialogue around mental health in Black communities across the diaspora. We truly appreciate you being tuned in with us wherever you are joining from and whatever time zone you are in. I'm your host, Steph Jones, also known as Lala Calandra. I am a mindfulness life coach and a therapist. And today we will be discussing a very important topic called faith, spirituality, and mental health. And we will be back to speak to our amazing guest, Sonia, right after this video. All right, we are back. Yes, you are tuned into Black Mental Health Matters. We will be talking today about faith, spirituality, and mental health. I'm your host, Steph Jones, also known as introduce our guest for today. I'll let her go ahead and introduce herself. Let everybody know who you are.
Thank you, Lila Calandra. To everyone out there, my name is Sonia Hart. I am a licensed spiritual practitioner with Centuries for Spiritual Living, and I live in Barbados. And I strongly believe that mental health and spirituality and faith are all tied into each other. You cannot get away from that because that's the essence of who we are. We're spiritual beings having human experiences, and these human experiences can bring us to that place of mental well-being or mental not so well-being. And I turn back over to Steph.
Thank you. Thank you. No, you're absolutely right. And you just helped to segue into, the first question. How do you define that relationship between faith, spirituality, and mental health? You started talking about it, but just expound on that, please. Like, how do you define that relationship?
Well, the relationship is one where they're not separated from each other, but they so deeply intertwined. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Recent reviews have found that the neural patterns as it relates to Christian prayer activates regions of the brain that are associated with visualizing and social cognition and emotional wellness.
Mm.
Um, so, in other words, spirituality and spiritual practices create mental frameworks by which we can operate from for overall better mental health. And you're less likely to become despondent when you have a spiritual practice or a religious community to be a part of. I'm complete.
Awesome. Yeah. No, no, that's absolutely true. Thank you for that answer. We have another guest who just joined us. Ron, how are you?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Hello, hello. Blessings. Yes, Ron, loud and clear. Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Good morning. I'm very happy
Okay.
to be here.
Yes, we're happy to have you.
Um,
So we just started. We just started about faith, spirituality, and mental health, like that relationship. So if you wouldn't
yes.
mind yourself, let us know who you are and and how you tie into mental health. We'll just keep going with the questions.
Well, I'm a very nervous person, at the moment. I didn't expect to be a guest this morning, but I have extensive experience in the subject matter that you are discussing. This is the
Awesome.
context. I
Mm-hmm.
was I was a substance abuser for over 20 years, and
Mm-hmm.
I went in and out of rehabs. I think, as a matter of fact, I was in 10 or 11 different rehabs trying to get clean. That didn't work. Um, I attended in AA meetings. That didn't work. I would get clean and sober, but then I would relapse repeatedly.
Mm.
So some friends of mine, they started a Christian 12-step meeting
Mm.
based on the steps that AA developed back in 1935, but from a Christian standpoint. And I began to understand, okay, that I was very similar to the people throughout the Bible that had flaws. They
Mm.
had issues. They had done
Yep.
done things that were very unchristian like. And then I
Mm.
began to pay attention to the fact that Jesus delivered these people from their afflictions.
Mm.
And that's when I began to understand the difference between deliverance versus recovery. I
Right.
was seeking re recovery, and in the AA culture, recovery is uh, you will always be an addict or alcoholic.
Right.
You stay clean and sober one day at a time versus deliverance, which says, I'm going, I'm going to deliver you from this affliction and from the obsession of using drugs. That's when my life turned around, okay?
Awesome.
Because I was no longer seeking to be recovered. Okay, I was seeking deliverance, and I simply prayed to my God, who I choose to call Jesus Christ. I prayed to Jesus to deliver me from my substance abuse, and He did. So today, I am 31 years clean from drugs. That's
All right.
the
Awesome.
pudding.
Awesome, awesome,
I couldn't
awesome.
do it in AA. I
Yeah.
had to uncover and get in touch with my spirituality to understand that Ron, okay, uh, 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 you have to do things like you have to pray, you have to have faith, you have to believe in the
Mm.
power of God to change your life around, and that's what happened. And this is why I'm able to sit here in front of you, ladies, today. Uh, I'm spiritually.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. No, that's awesome. What I'm hearing is like you couldn't separate your spirituality from that deliverance piece, right? And I'll even throw in from that mental health, you being mentally well in that space. There was no separation. It was all together. It's all like in one bowl together, mixing up. And I think at times, and this will transition, into the next kind of set of questions. I think at times we like to separate spirituality from not just our everyday life, but from like mental health, from our addictions, from those things that we're going through. But it's our spirituality that gets us through those, right? Connecting to that higher power, connecting to something outside of ourselves. Like we don't have the strength to do it. We don't have the stamina to do it. So connecting to another power source allows us to live better, be better, just progress forward. So that's what I'm hearing. And I thank you. Um, that is your introduction to Black Mental Health Matters, right? That's how we know, that's how we're meeting you, which I love that, right? With that testimony. That's beautiful. That's a great way to come onto this platform. So thank you for that. This is a question for both of you. I'll go with you first, so Sonia. Why is mental health important to talk about in our Black faith communities like now? Like why is that important?
I'm going to say it's important because we've been through so much as a people, especially those
Mm,
of us who live in the Western Hemisphere, those of us who've been touched
yeah,
by slavery, oppression. Um, it is important because we've held in a lot. We've been silent for a lot of years. I mean, centuries. We,
yeah,
and above all, I think there is the disparities, the misconception that we are resilient to all things, which is not true. So it is
mm,
these conversations for us to heal moving forward, so that the generations coming after experience a better way of living, mentally, spiritually, and psychologically, because we carry a lot, and all of us here are sure familiar with epigenetics and how things are transferred from one generation to the next. That's the thing that we
yes,
need to discuss. And the way forward is to have these discussions, and not just among ourselves, but to send it out throughout the world so that people like us get a greater understanding of what it is to have mental wellness, and to also understand
yeah,
that coming out of our experience as Black people moving from the African continent, a lot of our spiritual grounding was reshaped through religions that were not our own. That
correct.
in itself would have created some additional stress for the African peoples who moved to these parts. Let me rephrase that. The African people who were forced into these parts, having to lose and give up
Yeah,
spiritual identity. And by that I'm talking about the African traditional religions, things like Obe, Winti Winti, Voodoo, Orisha,
mhm,
yeah, these kind of religions that our ancestors would have been born into being disrupted, and therefore we're now asked to identify with the Eurocentric idea of what God is. So it is important that we revisit, we talk about it to help the generation, to help with that healing process for all of us.
hmm, yeah. No, for sure. And I do see a lot of people in the African diaspora returning to those traditional ways of practicing spirituality, really tapping back into their roots. And because what you said, it's historical. Especially on the Western Hemisphere, the African diaspora. If you're of African descent, you were forced over there. Unless you migrated and after a while, but your ancestors were brought over there forcibly, and religion was forcibly put on our ancestors, and it just passed down. So yeah, I do see a lot of people reconnecting to some of the old ancient ways, and people have different views and opinions on that. Just I think it's good that it's available to us, that we, if people want to practice the ancient traditions of our ancestors, it's available. It's no longer hidden. It's no longer, going to get you in trouble, or, so um, I think that's good. I do want to take a moment to welcome Hannah.
Yes, I wanted to introduce myself, but I just wanted to listen. Thank you
No,
for
you're
having me.
perfect.
Good
Um,
Yes,
morning, Hannah.
please.
okay,
Yes, let
so
everybody know who you are.
yeah, so my name is Hannah. I'm
Hannah.
25 years old, and I'm an online student. I study political science. And I've always been interested in how mental health and culture and also faith intersect since I'm
Mm-hmm.
Egyptian. And so
Mm.
like we are like African and we're also Arab,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a lot of, notions about, First of all, I think these kind of hidden about, race and colorism, and how depending on how you look, you might have a different relationship. But then also
Yeah.
there's, a very big religious aspect. And I think, just like you said, it's really good to have these spaces because there is still a lot of repression that exists within us and also around us. And sometimes we have the discomfort of, tackling new things, or we're scared to, even though some of these things are things that we see in different religions, like ancestral knowledge that sometimes we
Mm-hmm.
refer to, but we don't know where the source came from. And it can be like uncomfortable to reach out, and especially if you don't feel safe enough to do so. So it's great to have these virtual spaces, and also just different forms of media kind of like shown, like there's not as much repression. And also,
Mm-hmm.
if you are repression, there's the option of, anonymity for people who are watching us, or just watching just different things. There are things that you can do, and I encourage you to do them in a way that's safe for you, and also, when you're ready. And yeah, it's also totally okay to be in a place where you're watching this and you don't relate because you still feel very scared too. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely, 100%. Sorry, Ron. Just give me 1 second, please. I just want to
sure.
reset because we have a full house. I thought it was just going to be Sonia and I. So happy to have a full house. So if you're tuning in, we welcome you. We welcome you. You are tuned into Black Mental Health Matters. I'm your host, Steph Jones, also known as Alec Kalandra. And with us today, we have Sonia, Hannah, and Ron. And we are talking about faith, spirituality, and mental health. We're talking about those intersectionalities. Ron, please go ahead. Would you want to share?
Yes, thank you. Sonia did a very good job of laying out um spirituality on the African continent. I want to focus to what happened when we were forcibly brought to the United States.
Sure.
White people tend to believe that our spirituality began in Jamestown, when in fact our spirituality traces back to the African continent.
Yes.
Um, as you know, the slave owners worked very hard to try to remove
Yes.
any of our any of our spiritual beliefs that tied us to the African continent. Now,
Mm-hmm.
one thing I like to talk about, um, the slaves weren't able, they were not allowed to to celebrate the passing of their relatives. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
um, but the slave owners would have the slaves to help them to prepare for the passing of their
Mm-hmm.
loved ones. So, so what
Mm-hmm.
happened is that behind the scenes, hidden from the slave owners, we began a joyful practice of celebrating the passing of our ancestors. And so this is
Mm.
where that term homecoming comes from, because
Nice.
for the slave owner, it was a mournful, sad event. But for us, it was a happy event. It was a joyous
Mm-hmm.
event. We celebrated with
Mm-hmm.
song. We celebrated with with music. And the slave owners, when they saw this, they didn't understand it. How can these people be so happy when someone has died? How can they be so
Mm.
joyous? Why do they want to sing? Why do they want to uplift this person? Okay. And that is because we believe as slaves, that that person that has passed has gone on to a better life, a
Yes.
greater life. Um, if I can just say one other thing,
Please.
uh, one of the things that I learned in my deliverance from addiction, I learned two things. God gives gifts, The devil gives gifts. Okay. So I have to be able to discern in my own mind, in my own life, those gifts that are being given by the devil, which are very tempting. They look very
Mm.
good. Okay. But
Mhm.
as we know, it comes with a price.
Yeah.
You pay a price when you accept a gift from Satan. On the other hand, I learned to discern between the two, and I began to fully understand within myself the gifts that God has given me. And one of the gifts that Jesus, who I'm not ashamed to say,
Mm.
is my savior. One of the things that Jesus was able to do with my life, he said, Ron, I got this. I'm going to turn your life around. Follow me, and you will never have to worry about doing drugs again.
Mm.
So I went from the AA concept of believe. You know how people will say once an addict, always an addict?
Right.
That's what AA and NA says, okay? And that because you're always going to be an addict, okay, there's nothing that you can do. But God has shown me, I mean, I wish I could communicate the joy that I have in my heart of being free from the obsession
Mm.
of using drugs.
Mm.
Okay.
Mm.
Recovery doesn't free you from the obsession, deliverance does.
Yeah. Yeah. No. No. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think in order for us to move forward, we have to take those historical steps back. We have to understand what truly happened and how certain things were ingrained in us. We have to make sure that we have to see it happen. Like, this is what happened. This is, we have to follow the pattern so we can understand even why so many people are still caught up in some oppressive systems. Hannah, you said it perfectly. There's still a lot of repression and oppression going on, and we have to
Yes.
understand how that happened after years and years of someone, brainwashing you, indoctrinating you, all of that. We have to understand how it happened, and then take a step back and make the choice to find our spirituality that fits for us, not what was forced on us, but what fits for us and what fits for how we're navigating through life. I want to toss the question out there, and Hannah, I'll put this to you. Can prayer or can faith and therapy work together? Often they're separated, but can they work together, in like a beautiful harmony?
I think absolutely. And
Mm.
even when I haven't like wanted to apply these topics for myself, maybe because of reticence, maybe because I was scared of what would happen if, like, I knew they worked for some people, but I thought, everyone's personality is different.
Yeah.
Also, I think that the thing is, a lot of people will tell you, depending on what religion you follow, depending on what spirituality, they will tell you, no, you're sinning right now. What you're doing is wrong. You're not being a good representative of God. And I think that so many times they say sometimes good words like God is all merciful, but then they don't show it in their actions. And I
Come
think
on.
that if God and if all of these things are so merciful, I think your God and my God, if I decide to believe in him, would completely understand nuances of every single person. I mean, he knows every single one of you intimately, and he knows how much you sin, and he can hold these nuances of, oh, you did something bad today, but I know your heart, and I know you're trying, and I know you're gonna fail, but I know you're still trying. And even though there's voices around you telling you you're sinning, well, God will also look at them and say, yeah, but that was also sinful behavior of judging and chastising and, throwing stones. And you're sinning too, by the way. You might be good at prayer. And by the way, prayer can look differently. Like, for example, Ron, you were talking about slaves. The slave owners kind of othered them. They were like, well, something really bad happened and they didn't understand. that the slaves had this resilience in them. It didn't mean
Yes.
that they didn't think of their loved ones. They just knew that what the conditions were, their loved ones were in a better place, and they could also honor them that way, even
Yes.
if the slave owners didn't understand it. And even though, even sometimes in life, some people are like, well, why are you happy they died? And it's like, sometimes because we've seen someone suffer and we want better for
Mm,
them. And it doesn't, like, people can hold pain in different ways and people can present faith in different ways. And I think, yeah, it's very personal. And it's also lovely that, no matter, you can be open-minded and you can still, have a very specific faith, or you can tap into these different worlds. But I think there are things that we can see like common threads in religion, like being empathetic,
mm-hmm.
knowing that, other people are faulty, but so are we. I mean, that's, if we believe in God and if we posit that that's what we believe in, that's why God forgives us, because he knows we can't be as good as him, because we're still human and we still deal with emotions and life can be hard, and we still fall into old behavioral patterns that we want to change and get triggered and angry. And it's there's the good and evil in all of us.
That was
Yeah, yeah,
beautiful.
absolutely beautiful. Absolutely. And it just shows how it ties in. Sonia or Ron, do you so well, Sonia, I'll throw that question to you. Can those I mean it's not a rhetorical question. I mean, we're on here because we know it can, but how does that look
Yes.
like? How does that all work together? And can they?
Yes, they can. I have to say, yes, they can. That spirituality, prayer, therapy must work hand in hand. I think they create a really great marriage when the
Yeah.
therapist that you're working with understands the spiritual need as well as
Hmm.
the societal need, that physical need,
Hmm.
because what therapy will do for you is offer an evidence-based tool to help you to address your challenges and to understand the emotions, the traumas that you're experiencing. Whereas prayer will give you that spiritual grounding to keep digging in,
Mm,
and it gives
mhm.
you hope. And if you're part of a community, you have that community support. So I will have to say that prayer and therapy make great partners. But you have to be with a therapist who will honor and respect both of them complement.
Yeah. No, no, absolutely. Ron, did you want to answer that one too? Can
Yes.
can prayer
First,
and faith? Yes, go
yes.
ahead. Hmm.
First, let me say this: the slave owners did not understand the reason why we were so happy that someone was passing on is that they were leaving slavery. They didn't have to suffer anymore.
They
Okay.
escaped. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. And it this was a heavenly escape. Um, Answer to that question, okay, is yes. Um, I think we have to understand the intersection between addiction and mental illness.
Okay.
When addiction intersects or collides with mental illness, we have a problem.
Mm,
We have a very big, a huge problem. For for me, I have been in denial for so many years. Okay, that I was of my diagnosis of a bipolar disorder. I didn't want to hear that. I didn't want to hear the diagnosis. I didn't want to see a doctor. I certainly didn't want to see a psychiatrist because I wasn't going to take any medications. Okay. But addiction and mental illness is often referred to as a triple threat. So the question becomes, what do I deal with first? Do I deal with the addiction or do I deal with my spirituality?
mm,
Classic case of what comes first, the chicken or the egg. In my case, I had to address my spirituality first because I was living in hopelessness.
mm,
Living on the street, I was sleeping in my car. I was hustling to get money to buy drugs. And I remember the time, okay, where I actually said to myself, well, Ron, uh, the only way you're going to be able to overcome
Jasmine,
or get
you were saying
away
something?
from my addiction. Are you guys still here? I'm still here.
Yes, please keep going.
Okay. Um, to make a long story short, I tried to kill myself.
Mm,
And I tried to kill myself because I could not find a way to stop using drugs. I felt I felt totally powerless.
mm,
But thank God, I was not successful, and I remember the doctor saying to me in a humorous way, he said, "Ron, the next time you decide you want to try to kill yourself, maybe you
mm.
shouldn't take the pills because that's a lengthy, terrible way to die. Maybe you should look at another way, because it's true. I mean, they pumped my stomach,
Yeah.
they catheterized me, So to bring this all together, uh, without faith, without belief, without the God of my grandmother, without the
Mm,
faith of my grandmother,
mm.
I would not be here today.
Yeah. No, I mean it's true. It's what sustains us, what keeps us. And I like I like that you showed us how it all of you have, right? You showed us how it all works together, how they don't need to be separate. We don't need to compartmentalize them and keep them separate. I think Sonia, I think you used that word marriage. That's
Yeah, I
beautiful.
also want to prayer. Yeah, I want to share that prayer is not just a matter of saying words, it is also singing. And if you're familiar with music, praise will probably got to the day how the brother is going to music.
Hmm.
And there are several different forms of prayer. It doesn't have to be words spoken by rote. It is that communication with the God of your understanding, finding a
Yeah.
place where you can say, well, this is the source of my being, and this is how I communicate with the source of my being when things get a little too cloudy for me. So, as I said,
Hmm.
music, it could be dancing, it could be anywhere you can communicate with your higher self. That is prayer.
Hmm. Right, right. We don't limit it. We don't limit it, and we don't put it in a box. Yeah,
No,
we
you
it
can.
can be everything. Yeah, no, for sure. Right. It's speaking, it's singing, it's dancing. Sometimes it's even just silence.
Silence.
You know what I mean? And the word, the Bible speaks about that our groans are interpreted. Even our groans are interpreted, right? And so
Yeah.
that is something that's like, okay, like it doesn't have to be what everyone says it has to be. It prayer looks so different for other people. I wanna shift to another question really quick. And we're kind of in the same vein. How can individuals recognize that they need something beyond prayer, or they need something beyond prayer and spiritual guidance? Like how do people recognize that I need some mental help. I need a clinician. I need a life coach. I need something beyond just prayer or something spiritual. Hannah, I'll ask you that.
Yeah, for sure. So, I think that's something that's been said to me before, just about life in general, and that I've also said to people in my life is, when it comes to behaviors that are deep ingrained in you, and
Mm,
that can look like a lot of things that you one day you notice the patterns, or maybe you start to listen to someone's advice and you journal, or you notice that around a certain date or a certain trigger, you get this behavior that, even though you might repress it in the moment, it keeps showing up. and maybe you make jokes about it, but sometimes you just get the realization that there is something that affects you more than it affects other people. Because with mental health conditions and personality disorders and all of these things, it's all humans experience the feelings, but it's about the intensity of the emotions, the frequency, how they disrupt your life, how they might disrupt your professional life, your personal life. It's about how it
Mm,
impacts you in a negative way and holds you
mm.
back. But I think you can know all of these things, but just because of a lack of belief in yourself, because of also the certain mental health condition that you have, because of the certain behavior, it can be really deeply ingrained in you, and it might take, a lifetime of therapy to just accommodate that. I mean, you might always
Yeah.
have it, but one thing that's really hard, but I really, and it's actually so serendipitous that we're talking about faith. You cannot, when you decide to go to therapy, be one foot in, one foot out. Now, if you repress yourself a lot in your life, that will show up with therapy. But if you already
Will.
know, you cannot get into a mindset where you have to take a leap of faith, where you're like, I am hopeless right now. I am changing
Mm,
this. I'm going to go to therapy sometimes and I'm going to be like, I am done with everything. But it's about like, if you already from the start have such a deep aversion and you know you're going to go into therapy and pretend just like you do to everyone and hide your behaviors and your emotions,
wow.
because sometimes you know how dark things get and you're scared yourself of confronting the thoughts. You're scared, well, what if the therapist judges me? What if I'm too crazy? What if? And unfortunately, this spiral will keep showing up in therapy. But if you know that it's just like you cannot at this point take a leap of faith, then I please encourage you to do little things that will take you into the mindset, which is taking little leaps of faith every day, watching this content, even though you might be angry and you might be hopeless, and actually having hope and trying to build these habits, trying to say, okay, even when I get these thoughts that I'm not enough, that therapy's hopeless for me, that my life is over, that everything will stay bad. Tell yourself, okay, like every day or maybe once a week or something. Even when those thoughts happen, I'll witness them. I'm not going to try to repress them. But
Mm,
alongside that, I will tell myself, well, you are actually beautiful and you don't judge other people
nice.
as harshly. And actually, a lot of people are good who came from a lot of bad and who hurt a lot of people. And
Mm,
maybe, if you believe in rehabilitation, then maybe rehabilitation exists even though you feel so worthless, depending on if you
mm,
feel like you've done something bad. If maybe you have OCD and you haven't done something bad, but your mind is
mm.
still spiraling, it can be so many things, but you really need to take that leap of faith, unfortunately, to change that. There's no easy answer. There has to be. It doesn't mean it's not going to be hard and there's going to be a back and forth and tension. But if you're not ready for it, I mean, you'll know when you're ready, basically. And when it's not a lie and not just something that you pay and you're still lying, and it's not going to work.
That's so good. And we have to be honest. We have to be honest in therapy, just like we are honest in our faith, no matter what our faith is. We have to be honest. Sonia, you look like you had something to say. You want to jump in on that?
Faith without works is dead, Uh,
Mm,
so if you're praying and just doing that, but you're not taking up your bed and walk, so to speak, you're doing
mm,
nothing. So, yes, while recognizing that there is prayer, there comes a point in time when you're in bed, I'm not doing the things I should do, I am praying, but my prayers are just hitting the ceiling and falling back. That's when you have to get up and go and seek the help of a therapist, because it means that there's something within you at a neurological level that you need to have retrained, so to speak. You need to have somebody going there and help you reroute your thinking somewhat. You need someone who's going to help you to identify your triggers. So it is not enough to say, oh, I'm praying for a good outcome, especially when your faith is not where it ought to be. Because there are times, even for myself, and I'm a licensed spiritual practitioner, and one of the tools is mind treatment. And there are times when I'm faced with situations where fear and doubt step in and I have to call on the help of other practitioners and ministers and other like minded
Yeah.
people to hold that sacred space for me so that I can come out of that dark place and recalibrate my own thinking so that I know that the words I speak are the truth of my being, and I do not allow the traumas from the past to continue to shape my present and future life. So you have to, at some point in time, take up your bed and walk because faith without work
Mm,
is dead. It goes nowhere.
yeah. Yeah. So true. Ron, did you want to answer that too?
Yes, can I answer the question and give you a Black health, mental health matters exclusive? Um,
Sure. Yeah.
I have two. I have two responses. Uh, uh, the first has to do with prayer.
Mm,
If I'm talking, I'm not listening to God. So prayer for me many times simply involves me not talking but listening. The other thing I
mm,
would like to say is that I can live with one arm, I can survive with one leg, I can see with one eye, but I will never be able to live without hope.
mm.
When you lose hope, hope is the very thing that keeps us alive. You know,
Yeah.
when I talked about me attempting suicide, it was because I felt hopeless.
Mm,
I had nowhere to turn. So I can live with live without all of these things on my body, but if I'm to live, I have to have hope. Finally, I will say I will be hosting a show uh, dealing with how mental illness affects African American men. I was just brought on board a couple days ago, so I'm getting used to the idea. And what I'm hoping to do is by bringing guests who are educated in the field, bringing guests who have lived experiences. I hope to peel back the onion on mental illness and look at specifically why do Black men run away from therapy? I mean, what's up with that? Okay, why do Black men run away from medications, okay, that have been proven to work for many psychiatric conditions? Why do
yeah.
Black men don't want to sit down and talk about themselves? That's what my show is going to be dealing with, and I'm looking forward to it. And I hope you guys will participate. I will know more about the time and the scheduling next week after I speak with Daniel and a couple other people. But I'm very hard to be a part of your team.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And it's a topic that absolutely needs to be talked about. And there is intersectionality even with that topic and faith and spirituality and mental health. Like all those things run together. And so we'll be excited to see your show. And I know you'll bring the heat and bring up the questions that need to be asked, okay? Because that's really what we need. So um
And I'll be
you
nervous as
guys
hell.
already kind of started talking. No, as you should be, but we're nervous and we do it anyway because these topics have to be talked about. We're experiencing these things, we're going through these things are happening to us, and sometimes we only talk about them in silos. Sometimes we only talk about them with our friends, with our family, or not at all. These have to be talked about. Nervous, afraid, we have to push forward and do it anyway because these conversations need to be had in in the African diaspora community in general, right? From everywhere, from the Americas all the way over to the motherland, everywhere, right? We need to be having these conversations. So We appreciate you being here. You coming on new. We appreciate Hannah coming on new. Like we're expanding the team. Okay, we're expanding the team. So that's beautiful. So we're not coming to the end, but we're getting there. So I want to ask a couple more questions and allow us to keep talking about faith, spirituality, and mental health. Thank you to everyone who's been viewing. If you just tuned in, thank you for joining Black Mental Health Matters. We're talking about faith, spirituality, and mental health, and that beautiful intersectionality. Now, you guys had already kind of started talking about this, but I would like to know, even from personal, what I like about all three of you are doing, that you're talking from a personal place, right? You're not. It's good. We can talk about textbook things, and I've heard, we could talk about stats and all that, but I think sometimes it just sounds better when you give those personal stories, right? So I want to hear. We asked how does someone know that they need a little bit more than prayer or some spiritual guidance, but then what does that practice looks like? And some of you have already started mentioning it. What does that look like when you need a little something more, right? Or when you're saying, I have my spirituality in this hand, and I have mental health and the assistance I need in the other hand. How do I bring those together successfully? How do I bring those together so that they do have a nice marriage? So there is no divorce, right? So they have a happy, place that they're together. How does that look like in your own life, and maybe in some other people's lives that you've seen, whether it's clients or family, friends? What does that look like for you to bring those two things together once you realize, or once someone realizes, hey, I need I need these together. I need them both in my toolkit. Anyone can jump in.
That sounds like you're talking about the whole person model, and that's something that is taught in clinical pastoral education, how to do that whole person model and the living human document. And I would say for me that that looks like one, having a strong friendship base where you have people in your circle that you could call on when you're not feeling 100% emotionally
Mm,
and psychologically and spiritually.
mm,
That's one way for me. One of the other things that I do a lot of when I am feeling the darkness is that I pull my books off the bookshelf and I go back to the basics, start reading again my theological books, my books on spirituality. I listen to a lot of music, inspirational music,
mm,
singers such as Karen Drucker, Denise Rosier, Daniel Nemod, just to name a few. And to bring it home locally, I like Garnet Silk and the late Bob Marley. Garnet Silk
mm.
has also passed, but there are some really great reggae songs that
Yeah.
are very uplifting and inspirational. And but there's nothing. I'm not advocating for strong drink, but there's nothing like a nice glass of wine. You relax, you light the candles, and you relax.
Mhm.
Have
Mhm.
me moment, shut the world out. I'm doing this for me, where you just shut it all down, shut it all down. And I don't want nothing like that. But I also want to introduce the term that I recently came across, which is biopsychosociospirituality, which is a holistic method of bringing it all together. So you don't just look at how should I say, you look at the spiritual, the emotional, and psychological stuff and all the spiritual stuff together to see where the person is really at.
Mm.
And, you know, I'm also a member of the Self Realization Fellowship, and one of the things we're encouraged to do is a lot of self reflection, becoming self aware. And I
Yeah.
recently realized through another colleague who does emotional intelligence that that's what they teach also, self awareness. Be aware of who you are. I think that helps a lot.
For sure. Because sometimes we can over spiritualize something. It's just a reality. We'll just slather something on there when it really needs to be discussed in a whole other category. So thank you for that. It's a
Or,
nice balance. Yeah.
or in some cases, we do what is known as spiritual bypassing. You just throw a piece of
That
spiritual plaster on top of it and say, oh, well.
That's exactly what I mean. We
Yes,
overdo
like
it,
that.
you know, spiritual bypassing. We overdo it. We over spiritualize it. We just slather spirituality on everything. But the mental health issues are compounding now. And honestly, spiritual bypassing causes, I believe, more mental health issues to compound because we're like, blessed and highly favored. I'm great. I'm wonderful. I'm awesome. We
Yeah,
have
but you're
that,
not dealing with issues. You're
toxic
not dealing
positivity.
with, yeah,
We
you're
don't
not
deal
dealing
with
with the
it.
issues. You have to deal with them. And based on my teaching, everything stems from thought.
Yes.
And if you spend a lot of time thinking all the negative things that happen to you and will happen to you will experience more and more of that. You're not really healing. You're just deepening the wounds that you continue to
Yeah.
carry.
Yep. Yep.
So
That's
Some
so
people
you
would
true.
say putting a band-aid over a bullet wound, like it's not gonna work. It's not gonna
not
happen.
gonna work.
It's
No.
it's it's not good. It's gonna fail every time. Yeah. So okay, so Hannah or Ron, how would you, either from your personal life or just, instructing someone how to do that perfect balance of that mental health piece with that spirituality and faith?
Well, let
Um,
me say this. Oh, I'm sorry, Hannah. You can
oh,
go.
go ahead, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. Uh, I've authored three different books where I talk about mental illness. I talk about addiction. I talk about
Mm,
code- codependency. I talk about
mm,
self-destructiveness. I talk
yeah.
about narcissism.
Mm,
Um, all I can say, I'm not a clinician. What I've learned and has been based on my lived experiences, and
yeah.
I often talk about and write about what has worked for me. Doesn't mean it's going to work for you,
Mm,
but this is what has
mm,
worked. This is what has worked for me. Um, how I came to have a sort of epiphany or a revelation or a Jesus moment, real quick. One day, if I could be rather graphic about it, one day I bought a large
yeah.
sum of cocaine with the intention that I was going to sell it, right? I spent hours. I had a scale, I had bags, I was bagging this stuff up, okay? And based upon what I had bought, okay, I was able to package up bags of cocaine that would have yielded me $10,000 or more. And that's after only spending $3,000. So I'm done. I'm finished. And then I'm looking at the table, and you know what I said to myself? I said, I'm not selling any of this. I'm going to use it. When that happened, I realized that I needed help. I really needed help. Okay. Uh, and I came to my spirituality after realizing and accepting that none of the things that I was doing was working.
Mhm. Yeah.
Nothing was working. So I said to myself, well, Ron, what do you have to lose? Try this. Okay. So to put it succinctly, when I got out of my own way, when I was able to rise above being uh, self centered and selfish, once I was able to rise up, okay, and most of all, button up my mouth, stop talking,
Mm.
that's when my that's when my connection with my own spirituality, that's how it began. Hannah?
Yeah, so I actually wanted to add on to both of your words, Sonia and Ron, because Sonia, you mentioned that, it's not just about like saying the prayer and it's not this formulaic thing. A lot of the times people will tell you tools that will work for you or that, have a correlation with your certain mental health condition, your addiction, whatever it is in your life that's, making you feel like you're out of control. And you might be really discouraged when you try a lot of things. And I'm so sorry they're blasting music outside. They never do that.
No, we
uh,
can't hear it. You're good. You're all
I
good.
try to go somewhere else. Sorry. Yeah,
No,
there are other routes. I'm
we,
sorry for
we
the
can't hear it. Hannah, we can't hear it. You're good.
um
You were good.
well, just in case, because maybe you can't, but it's really loud.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Maybe someone else can hear it.
Oh,
um
okay.
Sorry. But yeah, I think actually you need to be comfortable with trying a lot of things. That's why I'm sure, Sonia, you would probably tell some of your clients that dating, I mean, therapy is kind of like dating. You might try on like a lot of different stuff, and it might not work depending on, especially if, for example, you have a condition that isn't researched enough or is very stigmatized. So some therapists don't even want to work with you if you scare them. And I think that you need to realize that therapy, all these tools, and also, like you said, Steph, we sometimes overcomplicate things.
Ah,
You can go, like, you can experience your spirituality if, for example, maybe, for example, you deal with autism, or you realize that, like, equine therapy, for example, you go and you realize
mm,
it is for you to touch horses, and maybe
mm-hmm,
everyone in your life tried therapy and you tried it and maybe it made things worse, or maybe the therapist wasn't the right fit for you. So until you can find a tool for you, you need to realize that people will sometimes try to help you and sometimes they will not try to help you and hurt you. But you need to realize that all of these things, you can fit them to your needs, your personality. I mean, for example, your passions. I mean, Sonia, you were talking about music. I feel so free when I watch movies, or listen to music or write or just all of these creative worlds. I love diving into them. But also, it's about
mm,
harnessing the qualities and also realizing the pitfalls, because I can also be escapist. And what's great is that when I'm in a better mood, I use these mediums and these different tools that I have to live my life. But when I'm feeling down, I use them to numb the pain, just like we do with watching a YouTube video that, just, this quick dopamine, let me get it now because my life is falling apart. So at least I can be happy this 15 minutes. At least I can waste time. I mean, whatever, like, who knows what's going to happen? Let me just abandon everything, because at least, like, it's kind of like the polar bear. I mean, you tell someone, don't think about the polar bear, they're thinking about the polar
and
bear.
all.
So don't
Mm-hmm.
escape too much. You might think you're really good at repressing, but I mean, the fact that you're trying to forget all of your life problems and using all of these tools that deep down are self-destructive, you're still torturing yourself. And like you said, Steph, adding on more mental health issues
Yes.
that will, like, that you're gonna have to confront, or either you're gonna blow up.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of, even I notice it with Gen Z and my generation, where we're so sarcastic, and we like throw around the meme of the dog where there's a fire around and the dog says it's fine and laughs. Even the
It'll
way
be
you talk,
fine.
the jokes that you make, it shows that, like, there are problems that you're using humor to escape from. And humor is such a healthy tool, but to an extent, like, take care of how you
Mm-hmm.
speak to yourself and others, because this is energy that's like going back into your psyche and also that you're projecting onto the world. So
Yes.
Well
Yes.
said, Hannah.
Absolutely.
Really well said.
Well said.
Well said.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, we are actually going to be coming up on the end of our episode, believe it or not. Okay, we've been speaking for almost an hour. I want to give everyone a moment. One, I'm going to ask another question, and then give everyone a moment to kind of give your closing thoughts as we're talking about faith, spirituality, and mental health. I want to ask, so try to wrap this all together, right? The question, and then you can, give your final closing thoughts. What is, or what are some things, or you can even say one thing, what is one thing that faith communities can do to support mental wellness? And that's not just church, that's everywhere. If you have a faith community, because we need it everywhere, in every temple, every mosque, every synagogue, everywhere needs some mental help. What is one thing that these faith communities and spaces can do to assist their parishioners with mental health?
I'm going to say that they can introduce mental health first aid in their organization. organizations by
Mm.
training the lay ministers and the Sunday school teachers and those persons on basic mental health training, the things to look for
Yeah.
that you can identify and help people to really move forward. The other thing I would say also is that they need to be more open minded because the
Mm.
world has changed, especially for a lot of younger people who no longer have an interest in Orthodox religion, who are more
Right.
like to say, I am spiritual, not religious.
Mm.
And like touch on that, I'm thinking of those people who belong to the LGBTQ community. I find that for them to find their place within religious organizations can be a bit challenging, especially um, as their lifestyle sometimes is being contradicted by the
Yeah.
very organization that they would want to be a part of spiritually. And I'm going to say this because if you attended a Centers for Spiritual Living meeting, you will find ministers who are gay, bisexual, um, transgender. You will find a variety of leaders who are sexually different and who are accepted because we don't just talk about diversity, inclusion, and equity. We live that by allowing
Mm.
people to express who they are in any given situation. Where I come from, and my spiritual religion, there is no right, there is no wrong, there is just the isness of all things. And this comes from my perception of what God is. I've a long time moved away from a God in the sky to a God within.
Mm.
And this is very fundamental to my spirituality. Therefore, for me, it is accepting people where they are without trying to cause all the triggers and trying to
Yeah.
bend people into shape and saying, "We ought to be this way. Look at me. This is who I am. So you should be a reflection of me." I'm
Mm.
trying to remember the prayer. I think it's a prayer by Saint Francis of Assisi that asks you that you first seek to understand rather than be understood. And I
Mm.
think that that's where faith-based organizations need to move to rather than having people understand the position of the orthodox religions like Christianity, Islam, Judaism, etc. Seek to understand the community that you are now embracing because one, we're living in an age of information. Information is everywhere. And
Everywhere.
yeah, everywhere. And in order for the church to really thrive, and I'm saying church meaning the orthodox religions to really thrive and do its best work in the community, those organizations have to understand the mindset of the community that they now find themselves in. We're more educated than we were, let's say, 100 years ago. Everyone has access to knowledge.
Mm.
So if you're going to integrate and come full circle and really serve the people, especially as it relates to mental health, then they need to do some real revamping of their message. That heaven and hell concept has got to be thrown out because you can't live by fear of being burned for all eternity. I think that how can I trust you when that's going to be your message? You compound the problem by teaching me to be fearful. I'm complete.
Yeah, I think there are some methods that need to adjust, especially when we're dealing with younger generations. Hannah, I like that you mentioned, that in that younger generation, like we can't keep approaching these younger generations the same way. It just doesn't work. And I think that's why we see so many people fleeing, from the church. And I like that you combine that from these Orthodox religions because it's giving out the same way. And we're so different from generation to generation. We're different. So thank you for that. Thank you for that. Hannah, did you want to go?
Yeah, I really liked hearing what Sonia had to say. I think I think she mentioned that first of all, you need resources and being open minded. And I think
Yeah.
that being a spiritual preacher or something, I think of it as a similar responsibility to mental health practitioners, where there should be an ethos of do no harm. You are dealing with people who are coming
Mm,
to church. Some of them are going to be happy to be there. They have all the tools. They feel like they're talking to Jesus. They feel like they're talking to whoever. But some people are going in, they're hopeless. They're at the end of their rope.
mm,
And if
mm,
you even if you, for example, have integrated thoughts, please don't shut the door on them. Even if you feel
mm,
like you, with their mental health, with their lifestyle, with whatever it is that you feel like you can't help them, don't add on to their problem. Lead them to other resources. Say, I have a friend who, just don't shut the door on them, because people are at a different stage, and the church and other places should be a welcoming place for people who aren't perfect and who aren't doing all the right things that you're talking about. So, yeah, just please, like, try to not do harm. And it's okay to sometimes have even thoughts of intolerance or something, but it's how you're going to listen to them and not hurt someone because of these thoughts. And, also always the self awareness and the reflection. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe I thought that this was wrong because I was taught that it was wrong, and I carry shame, so I externalize it. Just please be responsible. And yeah, that's all I have to say.
yes. Yes to all of that. Absolutely. We have a responsibility to do no harm, right? As a clinician, that we have to take that oath to do no harm. These faith spaces have to say the same exact phrase, do no harm. If that means getting other clinicians to come in, if that means getting other resources to come in, absolutely. Absolutely. Ron, come on and take us home.
Yes, yes, yes. I like to deal with the pharmacology of it all.
Mm, mm,
Um, First of all, these faith based leaders, these Christian churches, they tend to believe that when you say addiction, that you're talking about alcohol and drugs. I inform them that caffeine is a drug,
mm,
nicotine is a drug. Any behavior that you engage in repeatedly for to get the same result, that behavior is toxic.
mm,
Whether it's caffeine or nicotine, it all affects your cognitive thinking, just like
mm,
cocaine, fentanyl,
mm,
marijuana. So I would say that people in these churches, climb down off your ivory tower. You're not free from addiction. If you're drinking coffee, you're getting high. Okay. If you're smoking cigarettes, you're getting high. If you do any of those things, you're just as addicted as the person who is using cocaine. One final
mm,
thing. I was raised in the Baptist church.
mm.
Um, I my mother, as a United Methodist minister during her career, who incidentally turned 94 a few weeks ago.
Oh,
Um,
awesome.
she pastored many churches. The one thing that my mother would never do, she would never go into the community and bring those people into the churches.
Mm,
She
mm,
was willing to feed them. She was willing to have clothes drives for them, but she never would bring these people into the church and set them down, okay, and treat them as human beings, okay, who
mm,
simply have a problem. My mother would
mm,
never do that, okay.
mm, mhm.
So, in closing, let's broaden our perspective for what addiction is. Let's understand what the pharmacology is, okay. Cocaine, marijuana is no different from nicotine or caffeine. So let's not be self-centered about it. Let's look at the larger picture. Thank you.
Yeah, fully agree. And really, it's about these faith spaces broadening their minds and what they think, and even some of the stigmas that these faith spaces have. So yes, I agree. We need to broaden our way of thinking. We need to allow people to be themselves, and we need to make sure that we're not putting people in a box. Especially when we're talking about that intersectionality between faith, spirituality, and mental health. Look, you guys have all been amazing guests. I want to thank you. Okay, I want to thank you so much. Thank you, Sonia. Thank you, Hannah. Thank you, Ron, for sharing, for dropping gems and all that. And thank you to all of our listeners who listen live, who will listen on the replay. You have been tuned into Black Mental Health Matters. Now, you will see in the corner a QR code. Please scan that to donate to Black Mental Health Matters. This is a platform. We are growing, we're expanding, we're adding new hosts, new producers, and we want to get this word out across the world. It's not just located in one hemisphere. It's not just located in one country. We are international. We are global, and we need you to help and donate. Also follow us on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on X, on YouTube. Subscribe to us. Anywhere you see Black Mental Health Matters, click that like button, click that follow, click that subscribe, because we're dropping more shows like this and more. And Ron already told us what we have to look forward to with him talking about mental health with Black men. So please stay tuned. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next week for another episode. We hope you have an amazing, amazing rest of your day, wherever you are, whatever time zone you're in. Thank you for tuning in to Black Mental Health Matters. Blessings.